Hi there and welcome to my video. Today I'm going to create some jelly prints for collage papers in my art. I love creating my own papers. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to talk a little bit more about confidence in art. If you missed my video from last week, I talked about confidence as a skill in art, meaning that not everyone is born with it, but you can develop it. So that's great news. So for today, I want to share 5 different ways to build creative confidence, especially if you're just starting over or if you're even just starting. These are pressure-free ideas straight from my own experience and included in my new guide about confidence, but I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. So the first way to build creative confidence is to stop asking your inner critic for directions. We all have that voice in our head. I know I'm guilty of it too. It tells us that we're not good enough, that we can't do it. But asking them for artistic advice is like going to the hardware store for bread. So, what I do instead is to treat my art time like a conversation with a sweet, dear friend. You could even think of yourself as a child and how would you want to speak to yourself when you were a little 5-year-old? But you just want to think about someone you want to be kind to and say to yourself, let's just see what happens. No pressure. One thing I suggest in the guide is a little ritual to name your inner critic and then lovingly put her in the corner with a coloring book to stay out of your way. So it's kind of a way to get out of your own way, and it's just a simple way to do that. So the number 2 way to build creative confidence is to make a mess on purpose. I know that I can be guilty of this as well, trying to make things just so and come out the way that I imagine them to in my mind. But if you just grab your supplies, your paints, your collage bits, or whatever, and just aim for messy, set a timer for 10 minutes and say, this is just going to be for fun. I'm not going to put any pressure on myself to create something that is viable. And what I found is when I let go and just relax, that's usually when the magic happens. A lot of times when I'm doing my jelly prints, I can often have an idea of how I want them to come out. But if I don't follow a certain way of doing it, a lot of times those experimental prints are some of my favorites. And, from this practice, that quietly grows confidence underneath because you know that you can experiment and come out with something that you like and enjoy. So I have called these permission pages, and it's really changed how I create. So the third way to build creative confidence is to gather proof that you're already creative. I know that I think about this a lot because there's a major misconception in our minds that something specific has to occur before we can actually call ourselves an artist, which is not true. You don't have to earn the label of an artist by selling something or having a certain amount of followers or having a studio or whatever it is. But being an artist comes in many forms. You want to look at the meals that you cook. That's a very creative act. The way you dress yourself, how you put clothes together, different colors, different styles, the notes you've written, how you can get creative, crafting a message. That's all creative energy, and that all can help when you are trying to make something different in your physical art. So, when you gather your personal evidence on how you're creative, it really gently shifts how you look at things. So then you are a little more gentle with yourself in talking to yourself, like just because you didn't sit down and make something at your craft table today doesn't mean you're not an artist. It just means that you have to allocate your time differently. But you may have made a delicious meal for your family, and that is a different way of being creative. So it's kind of just shifting your perspective. And the fourth way to build creative confidence is to create without witnesses. I know I'm guilty of this because of this YouTube channel. I am always trying to catch what I'm creating, but sometimes I feel like it does hamper my creativity because I'm afraid of having to do it over or making a mistake or whatever I'm thinking during the day. But I just think that sometimes we block ourselves because we think everything has to be shared, but that private practice is really so valuable and it really builds depth in your work. So, what I would suggest is trying to keep a sketchbook or an art journal that nobody sees but you, right? Let it be your secret place to mess up, quote, mess up, and experiment, and you'll see it's really freeing and you really grow from this practice because I always tell my 9-year-old when you're bored, that's good because your brain is relaxed and it brings you ideas and thoughts and creative inspiration. So that's just something to think about. And then the last one, number 5, is to borrow confidence from future you. When I started painting, I didn't feel like an artist because I was just so frustrated because it wasn't what I was thinking about in my mind wasn't coming out on the canvas. But what I did was imagine a version of me 5 years from then and what she was thinking and feeling and how she was feeling successful and experimenting and having fun with different supplies. So I started just acting as if, borrowing from her and letting go of where I wanted to be and just enjoyed where I was in the present, knowing eventually with time and practice I would get there. So you don't have to fake it, you just have to keep going. So, if any of this felt like a warm hug or encouraging, I wrote more in my ebook, How to Create Art with Confidence, a gentle guide for women. And it's filled with the tools I used when I didn't believe I was creative enough, and maybe they'll help you. So, I'm going to pop a link in the description below if you want to take a peek at it. But either way, I hope one of these ideas stay with you the next time you sit down to create because you deserve to feel inspired and hopeful in your art practice. Thanks for hanging out with me today. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up or share it with a friend who may need some encouragement. And I'll see you in the next one.